Now we are joined by Mr. Chris Fallica. You have seen him on ESPN. You've seen him on Fox, aka the Bear. You can see him on the Bear Bets and a lot of other places as well. Chris, welcome to the show.
Well, I'm happy to finally be here. I've been following you for a while. I'm glad to finally do the introduction this way. I like it.
Yeah. All right. So you became the Bear, right? And how did this happen? Because I read that Lee Corso actually gave you this
He
nickname.
did. He did. Hey, we got to go back probably, I would say, 20 years or so. Kirk Herbstreit and I were having lunch or brunch, I should say, in a restaurant, like a hotel lobby. And we're kind of just like woke up, kind of gym shorts, t-shirt, kind of, let's go down and grab some brunch. Sure. And Lee always had his routine of he'd go for a nice morning walk, and he had what I call his uniform on: black leather jacket, blue jeans, white tennis shoes. And Lee never made any qualms about like wanting to sneak in and hide and be quiet and not get noticed. Whereas Kirk and I are just trying to eat and not be seen. So
Yeah.
Lee comes walking in, and Lee's like, "Yo, Chris Fallica, Kirk Herbstreit, how you guys doing?" And we're like, "Oh, well, here we. Everyone knows where we are now." So let's get. Lee comes over, and anyone who has seen Kirk and I out knows that any dead space on the table is wasted space. Like there's dead space, like there needs to be food there.
Yeah.
So Lee looks at the table. He looks at Kirk. He looks at the table again and looks at me, and he goes, "Fallica, look at you. You're like a bear. You eat, you sleep, you poop, and then you do it all. Take a nap, and you do it all over again." So I didn't know if we had a family friendly show here. I could have
No,
said the
no, no,
actual
no,
word
no,
that
no.
he used. So
Anything is
yeah.
fair game here.
But yeah, no, I owe it all to Lee for the nickname. It just kind of stuck after that.
So you started as a researcher though, and people
Yep.
don't know that for people who are in television in front of the camera that you are our best resource. Like you are the person who a lot of times comes up with these weird stats and interesting things that formulated a lot of the takes that come out. So how did you go from researcher to on-camera talent?
Well, Kirk and Chris Fowler and Lee Fitting, who was the producer at the time on College Game, they always knew that I had a wealth of information and was just a way to get it out on the air. And I was always hesitant because I didn't want to be seen as this like loud, obnoxious New Yorker flailing his hands all over the place, rattling off a bunch of college football history and stats and numbers and look a dike of dope. And they're like, "No, stop it. We're not going to make you look that way." And then the show finally expanded to 2 hours one year, and they figured out a way to get me in the show with the little GoPro camera in front of me, just kind of spew off a couple of like gambling related notes or series history related notes, statistics, kind of questions that I was raising about, whether it be BCS, college football issue, whatever it might be. And it just kind of took off from there. Then finally, when PAPSA became legalized, they were like, "Okay, we know you know your stuff. We know you're going to present it in a good way." We created that Bears board device, and I was able to give some picks throughout the show. And that's the thing I think I'm most proud about in my time on game day, is that even before it was legalized, we knew people were betting on games. We
Yeah.
weren't naive, so we would give them information about here's a nugget, or this is the lowest expected to be the lowest scoring game of the day, or
So it was
something like that.
coded
Or
at the time.
exactly, and then all bets were off. Literally, all bets were off when it became repealed and legalized state to state. We could actually drop the ATS and double-digit underdog
Yeah.
and things like that, and actually give picks on like an Eastern Michigan, San Jose State game with these logos that these guys would be looking at like, "There, what the hell are you talking? We have an Eastern. They want to see Alabama and Oregon and Georgia and USC, and I got like Eastern Michigan, UTSA, and San Jose
Yeah,
State on
something
the board.
that something that
They
people
love it.
really care about.
Exactly.
So my first experience with that was so I was over at FS1. So I'm working at FS1 and it's during college football season and it's baseball playoffs. And this was when A-Rod, Pete Rose were on the show. And so we would be in the
Mhm.
studio in the lot down in off of Pico.
Yep.
And Pete Rose one day, he goes, "Hey George, I just met him probably a couple hours earlier. So it was the first time I've ever met Pete Rose in my life. And he knows I'm a football guy. And he asked me what the score of like the South Dakota State, like it was a Big Sky game. And I was like, why do you care, Pete? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I wasn't paying attention to
Hardcore.
FCS football. And then I was like, what? I said, do you know who's playing? Know somebody who's playing? He said, nah, man, I got some money riding on the game. And I was like, oh yeah, he did that shit.
My man laid it with the old Jackrabbits that day.
Yeah. I was like, dude, so it made me laugh, but so many people are into it, and you have been, like a lot of these college football shows were so stuffy for so long, and
Mhm.
I mean, and yes, everybody's in their own suits and all that stuff, but it was kind of stuffy, even though the show was really good. But now I think you were kind of the originator in terms of the on-air personality that wasn't the actual suit. And
Yep.
now with Pat McAfee, with Dave Portnoy, and other people there who've come into the industry, like what has that been like watching and seeing that, like the transformation of the show to where like it was so stuffy to where there had to be an apology when Lee Corso said fuck on the air.
Oh, that was unbelievable.
Yes. And then you got Pat McAfee now. Hey, suck that dick. And you're like,
Yeah,
what?
the old LSU, yeah, the LSU chant there. No, and I think that's part of my appeal is that I look like a normal guy that you'd have a conversation with at a sports bar or a casino or a sports book or wherever. I think I kind of just give that normal everyday guy kind of energy, and I don't come across as just a suit or an on-air guy. But I think it's provided opportunities for people that maybe didn't play college or pro football at a big level and maybe aren't as attractive or versed and speak as well as others. But so I am happy about that it opened up opportunities for someone like myself. And then you know what, we can have a raw opinionated guy like Pat or Dave or other people out there, and Stanford Steve as
Yep.
well, who's now on game day, and I used the pod with him at ESPN. So it's been good in that regard because I think there is one of the things that I always was aware of, and there were people who would be like, well, why do we care about what he has to say? He doesn't play. Well, okay, well, Chris Fallica didn't play. Reese Davis didn't play. Rob Stone didn't play. They care about what these people have to say. Like what makes a difference from me or Dave Portnoy.
Yeah. No, you are 100% right about that because I think the thing that people resonate with the most is that if you care about it, if you're knowledgeable, you
Yep.
care and you're passionate about what you do. So, are you so now the question is, how much of your own research do you do being that now you get a researcher?
I do still a lot of my own research. Adam Z, who is the researcher for Big Noon, he does an awesome job, and he sends out stuff every week that I will use and pick through. But if I am still so like in my core, in my heart, I still feel like a researcher. So I'm literally this morning I was sitting on our stats database mining data and like coming up with like percentage of points scored after halftime, time spent trailing, and just some like ridiculous stuff because I had this like thought of like Illinois and people, the Illinois fans were all up in my grill because I picked against them against Duke, and they had the 5 turnovers and they won. And then last week I had Western Michigan plus the 28.5, and it was 10-0 at halftime, and they wound up covering. So I was like, I need to go back and look. Like, no team in the country has scored more points in the third and fourth quarter than Illinois. So like if you can go back and like find like what their like average like in-game win probability was at halftime compared to what they did in the second half, they've been the beneficiary of that so far. And then the other good one that I came up with today was that you look at Iowa State, you look at Kansas State, like the amount of time that they've spent in a tie game this year is almost identical. And you've got
Yeah.
Iowa State who's 4-0, Kansas State who's 1-3. So it just kind of goes into this whole like coin flippy type nature of Big 12 that maybe shoes could be on the other foot, where Kansas State could be 4-0 and Iowa State could be 1-3. So it's just some of the ridiculous like tangents that I go on and just start looking for certain things is ridiculous.
Yeah, Kansas State's an interesting team, Chris, because I actually picked them to go to the college football playoff this year. I picked them to win the
A
Big
lot of people
12.
did.
And now I'm like, it's weird because on one hand, I look at them, I'm like, this should be a team that can win the Big 12, but then the results aren't there. So now I'm looking and I'm backtracking. I'm like, maybe I should have went with Utah like my first mind said.
Right. Yeah, Utah was my pick. But remember too, that game last week in Arizona was not a Big 12 game. That was a non-conference
Yeah.
game.
Oh, true. Yeah.
So they only got the one conference loss against Iowa State in the game in Dublin. So like they're still alive somehow in the Big 12 race.
Yeah, they still control their own destiny now. Yeah, in terms of getting into the Big 12 championship. So you have this thing where you say if you bet less, you win more.
The less you bet, the more you lose when you win. Think about it. It's right? The less you bet, the more you lose when you win because you don't win as much.
Wait. The less you bet,
the more you lose when you win.
Okay, explain that to me.
The less you bet, the less you're going to win eventually. Now,
okay.
You also could lose less, but
yeah.
Just a ridiculous type tagline that I had with my because it's always like the should have bet more. Like last week, like it was like I should have bet more on Miami minus 17.5.
Everybody says that. Everybody's like, oh man, I knew I should have. Well, yeah, then exactly. Why didn't you then?
Right, because I'm a negative pessimist at heart, and I always think of the worst case scenario, and I do that, especially when it comes to my alma mater.
Yeah, and that is, and you're a big Miami fan.
A Miami alum. So
excuse me.
You're all right.
And so I got a chance to do so I did the pregame on CW for South Florida Miami last week. And so I've known Mario since he was at Oregon. So all right, and then I was on Miami's message board earlier this morning, and they're like, "Oh my God, people are starting to believe in us. I'm getting scared." Are you starting to get a little nervous because people are believing? Because I have Miami as the number one team in the country right now.
Well, it's hard if you're doing this right. You're doing this properly, and reevaluating teams after game 1, after game 2, after game 3. If you have Miami ranked lower than 3rd, you're doing this all wrong. Like the only 2 teams I could really justify putting ahead of Miami would be Ohio State and Oregon. Like if you look at like who they've played, how they've looked, in all of that. Like if you've got Penn State in your top 3, it's basically because you thought they were going to be good. You haven't watched them. Yeah, they can't finish drives. They're kicking field goals. Drew Aller is who we thought they were. Now, look, their perception is going to completely change one way or another based on what they do next week against Oregon and then in Columbus on November 1st. But like you haven't watched the games and seen how they've been in messing with their food against FIU and Villanova. But taking it back to Miami, this is the old Nick Saban rat poison game. This is where people now finally, like people were so hesitant because of like their opinion of Mario Cristobal and not taking a knee against Georgia Tech in the game against Stanford that they lost a few years back out in Eugene. Like people just have this knock on him as a head coach. You got to get over that because this is a talented team who's built up front on the line of scrimmages on both sides of the ball. They've used the portal to bring in quarterbacks the last couple of years. Now they have Malachi Tony, a guy they recruited at wide receiver, used the portal to fill in their secondary. They are a legit good team. However, as a player, Florida comes in wounded. They got one foot in the grave. And Miami just needs to give them like one little push, and they're going to fall in. But defensively, they played well enough to win last week at Baton Rouge. If Lagway could stop turning the ball over, and that's been a problem week in and week out against FBS teams, they could be in it. So Miami is a better team, but it's just all of the off the field type of stuff is what concerns me about this game. Because if Miami were to win this game, You've got the week off, and then you go to Tallahassee, and now you're really looking at
Yeah.
potentially having a special season.
Yeah, because one of the criticisms of Mario Cristobal, and when he was at Oregon, and especially when he left, I was looking, I was like, man, we had a lot of close games that should have been blowouts, and I think that you have to learn how to, as a head coach, learn how to close and learn how to win, and I think that this year is, and even points in last year where like he's a physical guy. Like he wants to impose your will,
Yep.
all of that stuff. But I think that when you learn how to execute and you trust your players and you trust the system, that you don't that creating close games is no longer his MO anymore. He's like, no, let's go knock the doors off and let's and let's win this
And
comfortably.
and that's what we saw last week against USF. And that's what we saw last year against Florida in the opener. And it's funny because people, you talk about trusting your players. He and Shannon Dawson gave. Like, I was sitting there week one, the Notre Dame game, like, why are we playing for a 45-yard field goal? Or why aren't we being more aggressive? And and the response that he and Shannon had after the game was actually kind of thought provoking and interesting. In that the reason they did that was because they trusted their defense. They said, "Look, Notre Dame's going to use all of their timeouts after all three of our runs. We've got a kicker we fully trust, and that kick would have been good from 65. We don't think that Notre Dame can go 50 yards to get into field goal range with no timeouts in this heat and humidity against our front." And you know what? They sacked CJ Carr twice on that drive, so they
Yep.
were right.
Yeah. See, it's weird because there's that school of thought, and then there's what I learned from talking to Chip Kelly was finish the game with the ball in your
Big
hands.
balls shit, a man.
Yeah. So it's like this. So it's like as a head coach, sometimes you have to take the first option, which is to trust your defense when the other team can't score. And then
Right.
sometimes you have to say, nah, this is one of them games, like for instance, the Tennessee Georgia game. I criticized Heupel a little bit toward the end of the game when he got conservative on that last drive and just kind of played for a
Mhm.
longer field goal. Like the kid hadn't been in. If you had Georgia's kicker, okay, maybe, but the kid's eyes were as big as flying saucers, and you just needed to get closer. And even when he kicked it with 7 seconds left, dude, run another play, please.
Right.
And I think that you put yourself in a situation when you because like and you've probably seen it in betting and all this stuff too is that fortune favors the aggressive.
And the thing, especially when it comes to that, in betting, it always seems like whenever you're taking a position that's a little contrarian or the unpopular position, you're right a lot more than it feels like you're wrong. But yeah, I was sitting there watching that game as well, and even though Georgia won, I have a lot more questions now about Georgia than I did going into that game because you're right about Heupel. Like the weakness of that Georgia second team is that back seven with their
Yeah.
linebackers in their secondary. They easily could have thrown a couple of plays and gotten another 10, 15 yards. It would have made that a chip shot. Then, of course, the legal procedure penalty really hurt them there and moved them back. But yeah, that's kind of the difference in that rivalry where when you've lost, I think it's 8, 9 in a row now, and they kind of in three of them they had
Mm-hmm.
double digit leads and blew and lost. It was like we think we win, we think we can win, we think we can win, and then when push comes to shove, it's winning time, and it's like, oh shit, here we go over again. And then once that game got to overtime, you knew how it was going to end.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You knew how it was going to end. But I want to go back to Florida for a second with DJ Lagway because him and Arch Manning, I feel are like well, they're both suffering right now, clearly.
Yes.
I think Arch is suffering from a confidence issue because when you turn on his tape, like he's not playing with confidence. It looks as a person who has two quarterback sons, that looks like he's second guessing himself.
And that's what I've heard this week from people who kind of have some ins down there and know the situation that yes, he did miss a lot of practice time or a good bit of practice time, and he wasn't fully healthy going into that Ohio State game. And as a result of that now and not being fully sure about his elbow, he's got a little bit of the yips and not necessarily being as decisive and as confident as he should be. So yeah, I'm glad that that comes across on tape to someone who plays and knows the position like you, because it's easy for me to sit here and say, well, yeah, this is what I have heard, but to have someone actually be able to confirm that means we're kind of on the same page here.
Yeah. And then Lagway, I don't understand, I guess, people's expectations a lot of times because the kid missed all of spring ball. I saw him this off season at a specific rehab place, and I was like, oh, he must be hurt.
Yeah.
And
Yes, he
then
is hurt.
yes, and then he missed the beginning of training camp. So how could anybody expect this to go well? I
It, we're so quick to rush into like wanting to move on to the next thing and not appreciate what we have with, say, either Nussmeier or Cade Klubnik
yes,
or Carson Beck or whatever quarterback we have. That we want to already anoint Arch, who hasn't really played meaningful football, but he's got a legendary last name in the sport, or DJ Lagway, who's got every measurable going for him. But yeah, what I had heard about Lagway, like, shoulder was a major issue in
yep,
the offseason. And then he had a calf injury that, like, he hadn't thrown in like the spring at all. Like, they weren't really sure as to what was going to happen until they got to fall camp. So, like, and then to have the calf injury, and then of course when you have a bad calf, you're worried about maybe that turned into an Achilles deal. So yeah, he's already behind the eight ball in that regard. Then you lose wide receivers, and the guys in the port that they brought in the portal haven't really panned out, and your offensive line hasn't been as great in pass pro. Like, it's a bad deal, and I think the number now is 13 games against FBS opponents, 11 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. It just looks like he's a guy who he just wants to let it rip, and he's either too confident in his
yeah.
ability to get the ball in there, and he's not willing to take the check down throw, or schematically there's something going on there with him and Napier in that offense.
Yeah. Now the most overrated team in terms of when people are looking at their wins right now, to me, is LSU. I'm like, Clemson's offense is bad, and they only
Yes.
scored 13 points against Florida because one of them was a pick six that got it to
Mm-hmm.
20. So if you get five interceptions, and some of those were like led to immediate field goals, so your offense really didn't do anything. And then you got Brian Kelly getting all upset because people are asking reasonable questions about this offense. LSU doesn't look as good to me as Brian Kelly was peacocking after the Clemson win.
And I'm with you. Like, after that Clemson win, like, as I said, I wasn't as high on Clemson as a lot of people were going into the year, and they easily could have
And
won. Yeah, they easily
I
could have
was one of
won.
them people.
You're not alone. There were a lot of people who felt that way, and there was reason to support that. But I was like, okay, you know what? That's a great win. Like, you go in on the road at night, your offense isn't necessarily playing great, and you gut out a win. But I think as we reevaluate things, which is what we need to do in this sport week in and week out, they predictably struggled and were sluggish against Louisiana Tech. And then you go on the road, you come back at home against a Florida team, like I said, who's just all sorts of issues, and you can only put up 13 points, and you have really no running game right now. That looked like a problem. Now their defense looks great, so their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games, but no running game, and the injury now to Nussmeier, and they said it's torso, so who knows if that's an oblique
Oh,
or whatever. It could be something, and that could take a while to heal. So that could be a long term problem. But you're right. I was one of those guys like, oh, if I got to vote after week one, LSU is going to be number one, and of course Ohio State's all pissed. The fans are pissed off at me. But again, like, that's why you do this thing week in and week out. Like, that win does not look as good now as it did after week one. And the same thing goes for Utah, where we're headed this week with Big Noon Kickoff. Like, that win against UCLA, I was like, they absolutely kicked the shit out of them
yep.
and dominated them. And I was hopeful that UCLA, like, I heard from like people within UCLA, oh, Nico was better than we thought.
Dude, I
The
was there.
young,
I was at multiple practices. I went and interviewed Deshaun. I was like, yo, I picked them to finish in front of USC in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I was like, look, I mean, UCLA over 5.5. They're going to win 6 games,
Yep.
and then to see them, and what Utah did to them, and then to see what they did, lose it at home on a Friday night to New Mexico, and
Yeah.
the UNLV game that they lost, like it just stunned me. So like now you're sitting there thinking like, do I need to reevaluate how I feel about Utah? Basically, I don't want to overreact one way or another just because UCLA isn't as good, but it'll be
But they
interesting
look
to see
good.
because
And their offensive line
yeah,
is excellent. Their offensive line is
that
they're not even good. They are excellent.
right, right. Like it reminds you of like the Whittingham teams that they had when they were
Mm-hmm.
a bitch. And you've played in Salt Lake. That's a pain in the ass to play there. Like that's a really good home field advantage, and they're physical up front. And it looks like Dampier's the kind of guy who you can build the Beck. Obviously, he's got him as his quarterback there again. So like we'll see. Neither team has been behind this year, so someone's going to face adversity for the first time this week, whether it be Texas Tech or Utah. So I'm. It is the game this week that obviously I'm invested in Miami versus Florida, but Utah Texas Tech
Yes.
is the game this week that I am most interested in because it's really going to shape the conference race moving forward.
100%. Now, Oregon fans have been on me. They're like, George, you barely talking about the Ducks, and I feel like, and that's why I resonated with what I saw on the Miami message board because I was like, shh, 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 let's not let's not jinx it right now.
You're sneaking around Kane's inside. I like to hear that. Uh,
Oh yeah, man. I am a message board lurker. Like I am, because I think that it's because being that I talk about college football every day, and I think it's important to understand what the fans are thinking and feeling, because then it gives me an opportunity to respond to
mhm.
what I know that like the threads that are getting two, three, 400 replies. So then that's what the people really want to know and my opinion on, or just talk about in general.
Yeah, and the thing is, a lot of times you'll get like little bits of information there that stuff coming out of practice
Hmm.
because someone there and happens to know a student equipment guy or a trainer assistant and like you hear things and this is where it gets posted and that's where a lot of news kind of
Oh,
comes through. So
this
yeah, I'm with
last week.
you.
Yeah, this last week, I think it was on Monday, Oregon's board started because it was like Decorium Moore got carted off at practice, and I was like, Jesus, take the wheel, take my leg instead. But that's where you actually hear a lot of these rumors actually start from, like and a lot of times from injury stuff. There's usually truth to it.
Right, and it's funny because there was a report. I'm thinking back in early August because I was out in LA at our Fox football seminars about Garrett Nussmeier being hurt. And you wonder, like, was that when he initially suffered the injury? And was that the injury that they were talking about? Or
Hmm.
was it just something complete bullshit that was being made up? Or was it something else that really didn't pan out? So, yeah, a lot of times there's where there's smoke, there's fire.
Are you believing in the Ducks right now?
Yes, absolutely. I think like if you are a Ducks believer and then you're in my betting world, this is the time to buy because if they go to Penn State and win, the prices that you're going to see on them to win the Big Ten, win the national championship, make the playoff, Dante Moore to win the Heisman, finish undefeated, all those prices are going to be slashed because this is one of probable two tests that they have on the schedule with I'm calling USC at Autzen a test. Like
Yeah.
if you're a believer, you got to buy on them now before they go to state college and potentially if they beat Penn State, like I said, you're going to see 10-1 to win the national title, 9-1 to win the national title, turn into 550 or 6-1. So
Who
I
who
I I, I am a believer because again, kind of like Mario, Dan Lanning's the same way. Building this team, line of scrimmage, physicality, defense, running game, and you got Dante Moore now. It's funny. I think there were so many people out there who were like, I was an Oregon over 10.5 guy before the year, and I got Oregon over 10.5 wins at plus money before the year. And people are like, what do you mean? Like, Dante Moore, and they go to Penn State. I go, Yeah, Dante Moore, and they go to Penn State. Like, you're forgetting that this kid was one of the most highly sought after quarterbacks in the country a couple of years ago.
Yep.
Because he didn't do well as a true freshman on a shit UCLA team, you're going to write him off. And what has Penn State done to prove that that's a layup win for them? These are the types of games that Penn State doesn't win. And even if they do go to Penn State and lose, the rest of the schedule works out great.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'm excited about it. But there is a team that I figured out on Monday, Chris. I was talking about Jaron-Keawe Sagapolutele over there at
Mm-hmm.
Cal. And then I was like, oh, let me look at Cal's schedule real quick. And I was like, they beat Minnesota. Oh my,
Mm-hmm.
oh my, oh my God. Oh my God. They got
Well, truly, they
UNLV,
play.
and I mean they got
They play
UNC.
Clemson for sure, right? They play Florida State for sure, right? They
No,
play Miami for sure, right?
no,
They play Georgia Tech for sure, right?
no.
No.
I was like, oh my God, they don't have a ranked team on the schedule. They play Duke in North Carolina in LA. The Virginia Tech just fired their head coach.
Oh,
SMU is I think they play SMU at home too at the end of the season. And I'm
and they
like,
don't have a healthy skill position player left right now, it appears.
yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, Cal might make the college football playoff. It was
Did you imagine that? Well, we were probably saying the same thing about SMU at this point last year. Like, really? Wow, you look. Oh my God, SMU! Look at the schedule. They might could have, would have, should have done something here.
Yes. So like 11-1 for them and a trip to the ACC championship because of the math. Like
Mm-hmm.
it feels possible right now. Is that a bet that you would be putting something on right now?
Someone mentioned that to me yesterday at 27-1 to make the playoff, and I think it was 27-1 to make the playoff, or 27-1 to win the ACC. I forget exactly what it was, and I said I don't expect them to win all these games. However, I don't expect Georgia Tech to win out and get and unscathed, and maybe Miami will have a hiccup against Virginia or someone that they completely overlook. The good teams they're gonna be up for, but eventually they'll have a game where their form dips, and they'll be in a game against someone that they probably should have. So, do I think it's a bet that's going to win? Probably not. But is it a bet you could make? Yes, because if they happen to get to the ACC title game, you have an opportunity to play the other side or play a middle at some point and maybe win. Maybe you bet Miami or as a favorite in that game. You lay a money line because Miami's not going to be minus 2,700 to win that game. So you can kind of figure out a way to make a profit off it. That's funny. The interesting thing moving about Cal and JKS is everybody now is kind of figuring out where is he going to be next year, because everyone's like, there's no way he's
Yo,
going
the
to stay in
price of the
Berserk.
brick. Imagine what it's if he keeps playing like this. Imagine how much it's going to cost for Cal to keep him. And I mean, like, well, I can imagine if Cody Campbell's like, I want him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cody Campbell's like, I want him. Kane's connection at Miami. Oh, we paid whatever it was for Carson Beck. Oh, I want him. Ohio State. Yeah, Julian saying maybe. I'm just throwing a name out there.
Yeah, I know.
You know, I want you. You know, Oregon. Dante Moore went to them. You know, come on back to Eugene.
Yep.
Like
that
he's
would
going to have. And that's
it's going to cost so much. I can't even imagine. Like, he might be a $8 million transfer.
And that's the good thing and the bad thing about where we are right now in this sport. The good thing is he's going to get compensated for performing, and teams and programs taking advantage of his name, image, and likeness because they're getting a massive amount of publicity. The bad thing is a team like Cal is going to lose him because they don't have the financial backing of a lot of like the other schools do.
Yeah. Who would you like to see at UCLA?
I think there are two names out there that I think make sense. Number one is Pat Fitzgerald, because he's someone who has won with less talent in the Big Ten, and he's someone who UCLA is not going to need to pay a ton of money to because he just got that settlement from Northwestern. So
and he could come right now.
Right. He's flush with cash. That's a great. I didn't even think of that. Yeah, he literally could come right now and be an advisor or whatever, analyst, whatever the hell they want to call it. So he's one, and I think that would make a ton of sense. And the other one would be someone maybe like a Ryan Silverfield from Memphis, a guy who's beaten some Power 5 teams at Memphis with a far less talented roster in a lot of places. Consistent winner there, kind of offensive line, physical background, maybe. He's the guy that potentially could work there. But I know there are a lot of people talking about Danton Lynn for trying to bring him back. But I don't know, with SC kind of being on the cusp of maybe being really good again with the moves they've made off the field. Like, I don't know if I'm looking to. I mean, that might be a pay cut going from a defensive coordinator at SC to head coach at UCLA.
Hey man, if Casey Wasserman and they have rallied because they had a Zoom call with 100 donors and all this stuff. So if they're ready to open up the pocketbooks, then so I like the Pat Fitzgerald idea. I'm also, and I know that this is, because maybe he's gotten his partying out now, but Ed Ogeron is a guy that I
Yep.
wouldn't mind either because he's recruited in LA. He would love to stick it to USC. He's got energy. He's
You
got
think?
person, and he's available right now. As he would use the same line of thinking when he got fired at LSU. Hey, brother, when do you want me out and which door you want
Right.
me out of? He'd be like,
Exactly.
what day you want me to show up? I can be there tomorrow.
Is a great. That's a great call. And I didn't even think of him. Like, you just automatically associate with him with kind of SEC land just because of his stints at LSU and Ole Miss, and then coaching as an assistant at Miami in the early '90s.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, people forget that he actually was the head coach at SC
Yep.
for a while when they had to make the in-season change. Like, oh, and you talk, yeah, you're the motivation. With how it ended there at SC when we don't need you. We're gonna hire him. Okay.
Yep. Exactly. So I like before we get you out of here though, what like when we're looking at I would say the state of college football because people are discouraged, frustrated, and all this stuff. I'm looking at this and I'm saying the answer to me is very simple, which is like that we need one governing body, right? That yes, sorry Greg Sankey, sorry to Petiti, sorry, everybody else, but somebody else has to be in charge in terms of like a commissioner, and then have the players be able to negotiate collective bargaining wise with that one entity. And now you'll stop all the lawsuits. You will have punishment be able to doled out quickly for violations. There will be a salary cap and uniform rules for everybody to play with instead of this state having this state having that.
Right. Now, I agree. I think that is a massive problem right now in the sport, and something that needs to be addressed moving forward. Because that's the thing, and that's how you get in all these differences with Sankey and the SEC pushing one playoff format, and then the Big Ten pushing another one. But no one knows what rules we're playing by right now. And just like you say, Texas has a different rule. Ohio has a different rule. Yeah, I think not only a national governing body for basically NIL and putting the playoff forward, but like officiating as well. It's like a central officiating deal. Because like where do a lot of these officials come from? Like, you see so many inconsistencies and
Yep.
calls and interpretations. Like SEC, you can basically just celebrate destroying someone, no flag, and you go to a game in Nebraska, personal foul, 15
Yeah.
yards, taunting. It's like you just need some consistency in the
Yeah.
sport. But yeah, I think look, the collectives and the schools, like, they would love some consistency and love some direction all over the place, because the last thing they want is this the government and the Congress and
Yep.
whatever they're calling that. The last thing you want is the government getting involved, and then you get Title IX involved, and everything has to be, and that's going to
Yeah.
be forget.
Dude, it's like going to family court, man. You better you better off negotiating out outside the building, buddy. All right, so I made my picks for this week. Tell me, am I crazy for these picks? All right, so Oregon State. I
Hmm.
got. I'm taking Oregon plus 35 and a half. Phil Knight's going to be in the building. They're wearing the new jerseys, all of this stuff. And after last week, in terms of that, like it was a good win at Northwestern because they won 34. They were up 34
Hmm.
0 in the fourth quarter and were never even threatened. But it wasn't like you didn't watch the game like, oh my God, this was just the most amazing performance
Right.
that you had seen the previous 2 weeks.
I
But
would
that's a big number.
probably I would probably lay it. The only thing that concerns me is the reports of the Decoria Moore injury, and
Yeah.
you know you've got the game at State College next week. Like, is this one of those things where they get up early in the game and then they
Mm,
kind of pull the starters and just kind of go through the motions in the second half? The one thing that I would say against that is it did appear that Dan Lanning was disappointed last week that they didn't finish well and they allowed 14 fourth quarter points and kind
yes.
of made that game look closer than it really was. So I would lay the 35 and a half. I certainly wouldn't take it. It would either be lay it or pass for me.
Okay. All right. Michigan State at USC plus 18 and a half. Now, Michigan State's the running back is hurt, the wide
Mm-hmm.
receivers hurt.
Everyone,
So
yeah.
I would have initially I was like, dude, Michigan State plus 18 and a half all the way. But now I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, I would lay it here with SC again. I'd be a little hesitant in doing that, just because they do go to Illinois next week, which is kind of a big game. But again, I don't know how big they feel at SC like going to Illinois is. Like that's not something. It's not like they're
Well,
going to
they better
Oregon, or
because
it's not like they're going to
because
Michigan
Illinois
or
ain't
Ohio
playing.
State. Like you're going to Champaign. So like I would think that they have been dominant so far, and I think they're turning eyes. And now that they're ranked, I think they'll continue that ascent up the rank. Yeah, again, Michigan State I think is undefeated, but I don't think they are quite as good as that undefeated record seems to indicate.
I got Arkansas, Memphis plus 7.5. So I'm taking Memphis in the game because I originally picked UNLV to be my G5 representative
Mm-hmm.
in the college football playoff. That's still alive, but for some reason I like Memphis better right now.
Yeah, Memphis is a team. I actually bet Memphis this week at plus 750 to make the college football playoff. So you and I are thinking there, but it's interesting. I think it almost feels a little too easy to look at this as a letdown spot with Arkansas going on the road to Memphis, coming off of that game last week that they very easily could have won against Ole Miss, and then next week you've got Notre Dame coming to Arkansas. So like it feels like a spot where Arkansas could potentially have a little bit of a look ahead, but I think Taylor Green and that offense is really really good, and I think Sam Pittman is a guy who is kind of viewed as maybe being on the hot seat, but I think this team it's kind of rallied around him so far. You know, Bobby Petrino,
Yeah.
they're gonna coach up, but they're gonna score as many points as they can. So it feels like an Arkansas win to me. Do I love laying 7.5? No, but if I had to play the game, I would lay the 7.5 with Arkansas.
Yeah. There's one game that feels upside down to me, and that is the Indiana Illinois game.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana's favored by 5.5 points, and I'm like, why? Excuse me. Explain to me how Illinois, like this feels like an easy money line game of everything to me.
Yeah, this has the feel of one of my favorite gambling. Another one of my favorite gambling terms, like the underdog with fleas. Like everybody, I think looked at this number and it's like, why is Illinois a 5.5 point favorite in this game against Indiana? And I think if you look at Illinois so far this year, like you look at the Duke game and you realize it was a one possession game, and Duke until Duke turned the ball over a million times, turned over 5 times, and like four of them were like incredibly like once at the Illinois 11, once at the Illinois 12, fumbled the punt on their own 18, turned the like there were a lot of high leverage plays in that game that really went Illinois' way. Uh, and then you look at the first half of that game as well. Duke's defensive line was in the backfield a lot.
Yes.
I, this game reminds me of, I don't know if you remember last year when Nebraska went to Indiana early to mid-October,
Oh yeah.
and Indiana's schedule, oh, they stink. They haven't played anybody. Nebraska, no, they just blew out Colorado, and wow, Nebraska's an underdog. Wow, I like Nebraska. I think Nebraska's going to go there, and the game was over 8 minutes into the game. It kind of feels like, I think the Indiana defense is pretty good. I think they're going to have Altmaier and that offense problem. So I would lay the points here with Indiana if I had to play the game. I'm not going to play the game because, like I said, I had Duke against Illinois and lost. I had Western Michigan against Illinois as a big dog and lost. And next week, Big Noon Kickoff is probably going to be in Champaign. So I don't want to get yelled at anymore. Should Illinois pull another upset this week and get the job done? Win this week and beat SC next week, and then you'll have me on the bandwagon. That's for sure.
Coach B gonna have words for you.
Coach B is my man. I love Brett.
Yeah. Oh man, I got a chance to interview him this offseason. That was my first time meeting him. I was like, oh man, I like it. And his evolution as a coach. I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in on him.
Yep.
The final thing.
Think Wisconsin would still like to have him?
What? Yes, they would love to have him back. Being that you are the Bear, right? And Lee Corso named you the Bear for your food choices.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your favorite places to go eat when you are on the road?
The Smokin Pig outside of Clemson, South Carolina, is the best barbecue place that I have been to. It is my favorite spot to eat on the road because it's just fantastic. The sides at this place are great. The chicken, the pulled chicken is fantastic. Just picnic tables, awesome spot. So Smokin Pig at outside Clemson is my number one go-to.
Go to that spot, dude.
Yeah.
I went to I got to remember the name of this barbecue spot when I was going to Clemson to go interview Dabo. I went and it was good, but next time I got to try the Smokin Pig.
Yeah, it's technically in Pendleton, so which is right neighboring town over. Baton Rouge is great. Unbelievable food there. It's fantastic. There's a really good Italian place in Columbus called Giuseppe's, which is fantastic. Where else? Let's see. Where else is good? I like going out to Beppe Gianni's out in Eugene.
Yes,
that's a really good spot.
Yep,
and I missed the pizza place that they had that closed up during COVID, because that used to be like Thursday night we get into town and we do the pizza because that was quick, and then Friday we go to Beppe and Gianni's, and then so we lost our Thursday spot, unfortunately.
They in Eugene, there's a new little seafood spot that's there, but it's like one of like the places where you choose where like everything is fresh in front of you, and you can either buy it and take it home, or they'll fry it up there. They have great, like the fish tacos are crazy there.
All right, and Chuck's Fish as well. There's a Chuck's Fish in Tuscaloosa, and there's one in Athens. That's another really good spot for seafood and sushi. They break it just like that fresh they bring it in, I think, from Destin like every day.
Yeah, and you're out in Salt Lake City this weekend, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Have you been to Red Iguana there?
No, have not.
It's a Mexican place there, but you got to go to the old one. They're both pretty close to each other. I really enjoyed Red Iguana. Do
they do lunch by chance?
Yep.
Okay. It sounds like a good Friday lunch spot because last time. Yeah, good, because that sound Mexican, sign me up.
Yeah,
I'm all for it, because the last time, or one of the last times I was in Salt Lake, Rick Majerus was still there. And he sent us to an Italian place called Walter's, and it was amazing. So that was a restaurant I sold the crew on this week to get the reservation for Walter's on Friday night. So hopefully it's still as good as it was the last time I was in Salt Lake. If not, then next time we're going to have to take your recommendation of Red Iguana.
All right, perfect. You guys, he is Chris Fallica, aka the Bear. Check out Bear Bets. You can see him this weekend on Fox Big Noon Kickoff, and everywhere else. Chris, thanks for coming on the show, man, and
Of
spending some
course,
time with us.
my pleasure. Happy to do it. Glad to finally connect and have a conversation with you.
All right, thanks.